PI planning in regulated environments is brought to you by piplanning.io.
One thing that we should never forget is where regulated requirements are coming from. It's mostly something that has gone very bad in the past. Titanic, an unsinkable ship, sunk. Have you ever seen a horror movie where the elevator crashes down, the people get smashed at the end of the tunnel? In reality, this never happens. Because it happened before, and there are now some regulations which forces you to build for such a situation, and that if the rope breaks, the elevator will stop himself. It's built like that by definition and by design. But of course, we still see that in the movies. It just looks very cool. So therefore, our concept is that we see regulatory requirements not just something that we have to fulfill and to overcome with. It's because somebody asked us to do so. It's something that we see as our natural friends. They're just here to ensure that we don't do stupid things, that we don't forget about something important which went very bad in the past. That's all. So let's take a usual situation we see a lot of times in companies. The task is to fulfill a specific regulated environment with its requirements, and you can say we make it very easy for yourself, and you take whatever reference model and you imagine and you want just to fulfill those requirements. So what you can do in a very easy way is to go through each generic practice, through each base practice, work product, and you replicate more or less just what is written in the reference model. And with that, what you do is you will get through any assessment at a company. But the problem is, this is a sure path to create shelfware. It's a process which has been written once and read once, if you're lucky. It's just there for the audit. And this is really a waste of time. What we think is much better to do is that a company says, hey, this is the way we want to work. And if you want to work in a scaled agile manner, we say, for example, you're going to have your epic Kanban. And you see, this is what I want to do. And you have your work products, you have a defined software architecture, you have document configuration management plan, and you have your roles, business owner, developers, testers, safety manager, whatever you need. What we do now is that we take again these regulatory requirements, ISO 26262, AS 9100, ASPICE, your own reference models, and we take them now as our book of knowledge, just to ensure that we didn't forget about something important. We do that in a manner that we map those things again. So for example, we take some requirements of ISO 26262. For example, this generic practice 2.1 maps directly to the epic Kanban. And this base practice of AS 9001 maps to the work product of software development. Some other work products from ASPICE is reflected in the software architecture document or the configuration management. And we can go on and on and on with that until we think it's good enough. Of course, this is much harder for the assessment and the quality department which builds such a system. But what we are getting is a process which is still optimized for usage in your company and is still agile, just enhanced with those things which are really needed for regulated requirements. And by doing that, we are getting compliant processes.
Here is a word from the presenter of this program, piplanning.io.
Have you ever heard of the RT Circle? It's a community where ambitious RTs and STs from around the world meet virtually every second month to exchange knowledge, learn from each other, and have fun. Apply for a free membership by following the link in the description. back to the program.
Unfortunately, this is not what a good assessor wants to see. What he really wants to see that you have a defined process which is fulfilling your requirements. But a good assessor wants to see that you really stick to the work. And this is something that we call process adherence. Process adherence, in our understanding, can be proven in many ways. One thing is the most natural for us is that you just have measures in place. Measures, for example, like simple metrics, where you just count the number of artifacts which are defined in the process, and we just count them. So, for example, the number of stories and the number of test cases. And if you bring that into relation, you have derived metrics. And derived metrics are a very good measure, a very good base to get an understanding of how the things are done. You somehow could say, this smells or doesn't smell really good. And it just gives you a good indication. For example, if you know that in the past your successful product development had in average 5.8 test cases per story, and now you have 6.2 test cases per story, then you can most likely expect that it's well tested. And remember, we are talking about PI planning. So what are the measures which we use in PI planning? Predictability, the program predictability measure, which is coming out of the business values achieved at the end. These are real measures, numbers of stories implemented, burned out charts, and we have a lot of measures, numbers which we can point. That is exactly what you need in regulated environments. When you can say, hey, we start here and every 3 months at every PI, we all plan together and we have a committed plan according to capacity in the team backlog. All people together, we even commit ourselves to those measures. And we have constantly known how we did it in the last 3 months. Have you ever imagined that somebody from ASPICE comes and he wants to see your work breakdown structure? You can tell him, we don't have it. You can say, yes. Everybody knows what we are doing and we have a plan. And it's in our team backlog. It's prioritized, it's estimated. And we even have an innovation and planning iteration every 3 months. We look back what went good in the last 3 months and where we can improve. How good is that? And if you made that explicit again, then you can show that to an assessor. And if you can do so, they will almost kiss your feet. Without going too much into details, I would like to show you that a systematic approach is needed and it must be tool supported as well. This is something that is built into Applied Safe as well. And we see here just one screenshot where we map the PI planning process to ASPICE requirements. In this example, we see here the define the scope of work. This is one of the standard requirements and it's reflected in the PI planning process. We see this activity which works for this product. And if we don't find a place where we can map such a thing, then we have identified a gap. And that is something that we were looking for. We may have to improve something or to do something different. For documentation, we rate every single requirement. What we usually do, we give access to the assessor to this information as well. Because we know transparency is our best friend. We have nothing to hide. And if you put up such information to his place, we make sure that the assessor understands how we think and how we want to work as well. And this really helps to get clearness and trust.